which technically is still in the young childhood stage, but it's the bridge to adolescence. So the interesting thing here is it's like a stage within a stage. Not quite children, not quite teenagers, so the experiences get kind of wonky. When should they begin to take on more responsibility and how much? And if the family structure is already set up to where children at this stage already have a lot of responsibility, but because circumstances just call for that sometimes, right? Consider how was their energetic development being impacted by that or not, with that external circumstance. Um, hey Noah, what's going on? Welcome, Noah. Noah, y'all show some love to Noah. He's a recent high school graduate. So this a lot of what we're going to talk about in the next level, the next developmental stage is going to be relevant to what Noah is going to be experiencing. So if you're still here, Noah, stick around. You may find something useful in today's talk. We're talking about holistic tips and practices for summer vacation 2025. And this time we included all levels from elementary all the way to young adult. So glad to see you, Noah. Thanks for coming in. And we're talking about our tweens, all right? They are, how much truth are they ready for? When are they ready to hear certain truths? How are they being supported to speak their mind, right? You're going to hear a lot more of them speaking their mind in the summertime than during the school year. So, how are you preparing yourself to navigate that, right? How are you preparing yourself to uh, not look at it as them them speaking their mind as being disrespect, but look at it like, oh, here's an opportunity for me to help them navigate this part of life based on where they are in their development. Remember, this is energetic development we're talking about, but because we're getting into the tween and adolescent territory, physical development is about to start to come be part of this conversation as well. So keep that in mind, y'all. Well, what we may classify as misbehavior may increase during this stage due to consistent miscommunication and the natural urge to test boundaries if there's not a healthy structure in place. This is a natural time when boundaries are starting to be tested. We want to see how far we can go. It's natural. That is what we do as we grow up. It's nothing wrong with children testing a boundary. We got to get real clear on this. I'm here to say things that may not be popular, but like think about how many jacked up things we say to children as we're raising them. Don't test me. That's the whole friggin' point. That's how they learn. They're not trying, but here's the thing. You as the adult have to reframe that. Get out your ego, yo. They're not trying to test you. They are not your enemy. They are trying to learn from you. They're trying to learn with you, and in some situations, they came back to teach you something. See what I'm saying? Okay? So it's not disrespect when a person younger than you speaks their mind. It's okay for them to say what they're feeling. You as the adult can provide a healthy container, a healthy boundary for them to learn, okay, I see what you're saying, and what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Let's navigate a way to communicate that so you can get your point across and also be heard. Because some people hearing it the way that you just said it to me, look, I'm your mom. I know how you get down. And I know you don't mean no disrespect, but some people hearing it that way, they might interpret it as disrespect. And what you have to say is so important. We don't want people to shut down their ears from your message just because they can't take the tone of the delivery. So I'm gonna help you work on what that can look like, and know that it's not going to be perfect the very next time because we're flowing through development. Okay, that's just an example. Would you get time? 1 second. Oh, Juice, that's okay. Yeah, thank you for. I think that I can see what was said. Noah just put in the chat. I don't I don't have my view on, so I can't show it right now. But Noah just put in the chat, um, it was either that, like, don't test me, or boy, don't piss me off. Exactly. I'm so glad you're here, Noah, because you are closer to some of these things I'm talking about than, I am, like, physically in life. You know what I'm saying? So I'm so grateful that you're here to be able to share like that unique real time experience. Because Noah is closer to having lived some of these things than I am, and some of the adults are who may be listening, older adults. So yeah, it's either like don't test me or don't piss me off, and it's like I am literally not trying to deliberately piss you off. I have a question. I literally am new to this concept and don't know about it. I'm not trying to make you upset. Can you help me? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's literally what these behaviors be meaning. And that's why I said earlier that the language we learn how to speak is behavior when we start to see our children through energetic development and through development in general. Okay. Something else that might show up during this stage, y'all, is grief. Grief could show up in the children and the adults because the children are realizing that they're no longer the little one. They're no longer that cute little baby who can get away with anything. And the adults are realizing this as well. And sometimes, it's hard sometimes to let go. Not hard, but it's not easy to let go of that little one, or who you were allowed to be to that little one. Again, reground ourselves in the question that we started this conversation with. What do you, as the parent or the caregiver, want out of the summer vacation? You know what I'm saying? Because that's it. Just remember that. Remember that. That's how we framed our talk together. So, um, one of my cousins, when her son turned 16, she of course gave him a beautiful 16 coming of age party. But then you know what she did, y'all? She had a bittersweet 16 party for herself. And the bittersweet 16 party was a party for her and all of her friends and people in her peer group, like me, one of her cousins in the peer group. We around the same age. She had a party for herself to celebrate this developmental milestone of motherhood, of raising her eldest son until she was 16, and also being able to hold space for he's not my little baby anymore, and allowing all of her sisters, her friends, and loved ones to hold her and surround her and give her love and good energy, and reminds her that yes, he's not your baby no more, but he's growing into a fine young man. And we just had a great time, girl talk, and great food and drinks and all of the things, right? But why did she do that? It was a way to support her through grieving the loss of childhood in her oldest son. Does this make sense? Okay. Um, so parents are realizing that their babies are growing up. Some parents are really good in those earlier stages because they're needed more. Sometimes, I'm being real, sometimes we have babies because we don't feel needed enough in the world and we want someone to need us. Okay? And so it's easiest for us to parent those younger babies because they need us more, and when they grow up and become more independent, we don't feel as attached or needed, and that can bring things up. And the feelings that come up can impact our behavior within ourselves and with our children. It's okay. Let's be honest about these things so we can really like support ourselves through them. It's okay. Let's get into it and let's learn how to support our tweens during their summer vacation time. Did the screen change? I don't think so. Ah, here we go. Okay, so developmental highlights of our tweens. More independence, yes. They have more evolved thinking. They're more cooperative, more social, and we could be experiencing some early onset puberty here. So we're talking about our beloveds from ages 10 to 12. They're starting to become more independent of their families, their parents, and they're they're starting to become more independent of those things, and also beginning to make room for other people's point of view, releasing that self-centeredness that comes from being a child and it always being about them. They start to become more able to think abstractly as well as concretely, and their attention span increases. And what so they say, right, that people's attention spans nowadays are dwindling, and there's truth to that. There's a lot of contributing factors like social media, moving super fast, fast-paced content, poison in food now that gets into the developing brain, and those brains are being conditioned to handle what's being given to it. So if the developing brain is only seeing content that lasts for 30 seconds and gives a really quick dopamine hit and then, a crash out, then yeah, of course you want to have a short attention span. It's not used to holding space for content that is longer and that gives room for emotional processing. So then it won't be able to handle it when you give it to it. That's why it has a shorter attention span nowadays. So if you are wise, right, you realize that, oh, people don't just have a short attention span. We're doing things to contribute to that. So if I don't want that to happen to my children or my family, knowing what is contributing to it, here's how we can work against it. Okay? So keep that in mind. This is also when people at this stage are going to become more willing and able to engage in cooperative group activities, and now, like I said, because that ego is starting to, mellow out a little bit. So it's not just always about me, me, me all the time. And they're more willing to be more cooperative. Um, the early onset puberty, um, it could start at this stage or even earlier, which could be concerning, or even disconcerting, because the body starts to move at a pace that the emotions and the mental may not have caught up to yet. Okay? So, what do they need at this stage? As they start to gain independence, they're going to need more trust from you, to make decisions and to take action, especially if you're not around. So, this loops back to that conversation is, can I trust you to make good decisions if I'm not watching you? Because if I can't, then I need to always be watching you. And if I have to always be watching you, right, the real question is, what does it say about my parenting, right? But if you want to also build up some responsibility in the child, you can ask them, if I have to always be watching you, then what does it say about how you are implementing what you're learning? But the other question too is, if I feel like I can't trust my child, like going back to that mom that said, if I leave them alone for a couple minutes, they're going to be all over the place. Well, do you have the proof? And if she doesn't have the proof, then it's like, well, then why do you think that? Why do you automatically believe that? Why do you automatically like not trust your child? Gentle question. Just ask yourself, like, do I innately trust them? Do I make my children earn my trust? Do I set up a situation where they automatically may not feel that they can be trusted? Right? Okay. So they're going to need trust from you because it helps them to feel safer. Um, Trust, like, that they can do it, and you will know they can do it because you're raising them. You're practicing with them. You're supporting them through their thought process. So you do know that they can do it, right? Um, how do you ensure that they make the right decision when the time comes? Because we can't control it all the way, but so the most you can do is help them prepare. Have those real conversations. Watch movies. Movies are a great way, yo. Watching movies with your teenage or tween or even young adult children is such a good way to look at scenarios that could happen in real life, and then role play with them, or say like, how, work through it. How could this have been avoided? Look at different characteristics of people who may show up in the world. Look at how this person moved. Learn to be trusting of these kinds of people or not, right? Movies are a great way to break all those kinds of things down. And summertime is a great time to do that because we have more unstructured time than during the school year. Um, yeah, in those movies you can, um, talk about breakdowns in communication where people wasn't moving with integrity, all those kinds of things, right? And believe me, you're planting seeds that are helping them to inform their independent decision making. um, Role play, especially if you're learning that they're more of an experiential learner. Role playing is going to be like your bread and butter to helping them really solidify their learning. um, when you're hands on in such a practical way, like a real authentic way, this allows you to feel safe to put trust in them, which is going to grow over time as your relationship grows, and it's going to be tested too. But you already gave it a fertile breeding ground to grow. Um, Tweens are quirky, right? 10, 11, 12. That's a quirky stage, right? As we get closer to adolescence and really start to shed that child identity, children start to kind of feel the reality of growing up, and they may sometimes cling to those things that make them still be the little one or be the baby. If you notice it, find a gentle and respectful way to address it if it needs to be addressed at all. Some things may not mean that they're holding on to immaturity, um, but some of the things that some things might, you know, or some things might be related to the grief of realizing that they're not the baby anymore. You know what I'm saying? So you know your child best. You'll be able to make those determinations specifically as it relates to your children. Seeing your baby grow up though, right? Um, Knowing that the actual childhood stage is over and they're entering their teenage years now, that is also a developmental stage for parents and caregivers. So they also need to know from you that it's okay that they grow up. It's okay for them to not stay little anymore. Okay, just because that makes you feel better and more needed. All right. Um, that healthy creative outlets, they need that, um, to support healthy emotional regulation. It's not just about being creative and doing things that interest them, but it also helps them to regulate their emotions. And we've all seen some explosive. We've seen adults or young adults do some explosive things, like on social media. I don't know if it's like if they just do it for trends, like just for views and likes. But have you ever seen a video of like a game, like a championship game or something like that? The team that somebody wanted to win loses, and then the video shows someone just like go and break the TV, like they're like super upset, like why so serious? But it's like it's so serious to them because they have dysregulated emotions and don't really know how to handle emotion, big emotions like that. So having a healthy creative outlet and start, growing up with having one helps with that emotional regulation and support. Um, and it gives them an area where they can consistently experience success and connection to themselves, maybe in a way that they don't always feel success or connection with like academics or something like that. The social experiences, healthy socialization, super important at this stage because it helps set them up for what they're going to experience in adolescence. So shout out to my mom and sister for rearranging, right? If I had continued with Click Taboo, you know, that could have set me up to go a different way in my adolescence. My my mom and sister said, if you go to high school with this click taboo nonsense, you are going to get beat up. You need a you need a real one in your life, yo. Children need a real one in their lives. Children need real adults in their lives who are not afraid to tell them the truth with love. They said, baby girl, we aren't fighters. We don't come from that kind of family. You know what I'm saying? And no disrespect and no shade to those of y'all who do. But my mother and the women in my family were not the ones that you was going to see taking off earrings to go rumble in the street. No, no, boo. No, no. Wasn't raised that way. You see what I'm saying? So they were like, you take that mess to some height to up to high school, you gonna get your ass whooped because you don't know how unless you get to unless something changes, you need to learn how to fight because we don't do that, and we ain't coming to help you because we don't do that. You see what I'm saying? So those social experiences are helpful, and it is okay to step in, as I just told you how my peoples did when they saw that I was beginning to embark on a social experience in my tween years that wasn't would not have been beneficial to me moving forward in my life. Does it make sense? Um, and so those you can facilitate them, but also they can also happen independently, and it's safe to have it's helpful to have independent as well as supervised ones when it comes to socializing at that stage. Keep in mind that this is when the rebellious nature starts to speak up. It's not going to be as loud and blatant as it will be in adolescence, but it will show up in pushing boundaries or what we talked about earlier, like talking back, quote unquote, just seeing how far their limits are. You can take the guesswork out of how far their limits are by keeping the communication open. If they expect that you're going, if you expect that because they hit a certain age, they're going to intuitively take on more responsibility just because they are now 12 and school is out for the summertime. So because they're spending more time at home and they're 12, they big enough, so they should just know that they need to be cleaning up more. Don't assume that. Don't do that. It would be better to just like have an open conversation about your expectations for cleaning up and maintaining materials and resources, having company, all the other good stuff while they're home more during the summer than assuming it that they just know and then getting irritated when they don't do it and then having to retroactively establish something. You can take the guesswork out of all of it by you being in control of the things that you can control. Deep down, children crave loving, healthy boundaries because it is a signal of care. It's a signal of your responsibility and your investment in them. Okay? If we're walking around just allowing the children to dictate what's what, that we need to be, and it happens. Someone told me a story a little while ago about some young bulls outside doing the most, and all the adults was just like watching it, and none of the adults wanted to say nothing to them. Like, we got to cut that out. Are we afraid of the children now? That we can't. And I'm not even trying to be like facetious. Like in some cases, yeah, the children is walking around with the switches, like, right? So we okay, then lost our way. We got to get back to basics, and that's what this is all about. Okay, adults getting back to their basic selves so that we can be better for our children and help our children get back to their basic selves because the shit has gotten out of control. Okay, but we can put it back in control, right? That's what we're doing here. Okay, they need them boundaries. It's a sign that we care for them. It's a sign that we don't want to see them go out into the real world doing a whole bunch of bullshit, a bunch of fuck shit that they don't have no business doing, making themselves look bad, putting themselves at risk for things that they have no business doing before they are developmentally ready for them. See what I'm saying? That's what a caring and responsible adult will do for a child at any stage, at any age. Okay? Let's keep going here. So, how do we support our tweens? Okay? Um, when they feel like you trust them, chances are they're going to rise to that occasion and prove you right and show you, like, yes, you were right to put your trust in me. You're going to know to what extent you're able to trust them. You know how? By assessing how you have raised them. So let's go back to our mom who said, "Oh, I can't leave my child alone for 2 minutes. At 2 minutes, they'll be all up in everything. Everything be a mess." Mom, with with love, what are you doing to help your child know that that's not appropriate to do? What are you doing to help your child know that they should not be climbing up on everything and opening up all the cabinets and playing inside of the sugar just because you're not watching them, right? And in the classroom during teacher trainings, they used to describe it as there's like there's teacher moves and there's student moves. And we really can't expect students to do certain things unless the teacher has first already set the tone by making certain teacher moves. You see what I'm saying? So, like, what parental moves have you put in place? What have you done? Okay, so you're going to know to what extent you can trust your child by assessing how you've been raising them. What do you say to them, and what do you allow them to observe? What do they know about themselves in the world? Right? You'll know that based on the work that you put in those areas. And so then when they're ready, you'll start having you'll start to see when you see that they're socially ready, you'll start to facilitate those little independent experiences with their friends here and there. Nothing too crazy, y'all. The children go to the movies. One parent is responsible for picking everybody up and dropping them off, or everyone get dropped off at one house, and I'm gonna take them to the movies. And then another parent, their job is to pick them up from the movies and drop them all back, right? So they're starting to have this experience of what it means to be outside of the home and conduct themselves away from their parents and enjoy life, right? But it's still also kind of structured because you still doing the drop off and the pickup. You still going to grill them after, right, to know what happened, right? You see what I'm saying? So in situations like that help us to build up a more of the trust, right? Trust that we have in them, and also trust that they're going to have in us. Um, you know your child. You know what they're ready for. So you'll know that at the level of maturity that they're getting at. When they're ready for certain things. Some ways to encourage more socialization. If they don't have a lot of friends from school, you could, befriend children in the neighborhood if that's a safe and available thing to do, um, or through some kind of extracurricular activities. We spoke about them earlier. Um, Sometimes they may start doing something like Girl Scouts and be able to grow through the program and, until completion, things like that. Allow them to keep doing it if that's the case. Um, uh, I don't think it's too late if if this is the first time that you've been thinking about things like this. You're like, wow, this is making a lot of sense. Like, I need to get on it. I don't think it's too late to find a summer camp or a summer program. School is just now getting out. The places are enrolling actively now, but a lot of places really don't have their programs like really start until after Independence Day, July 4th holiday. So you know Go, look around, do some searches, inquire in your neighborhood, find a place if you're thinking like, wow, I would like to get my child in something. I'm sure there's a place where you can go, but again, if not, um, family, friends in the neighborhood, all free. Okay. Um, this is also a time for our young people who might be starting to experience that early onset puberty family. Um, a, they need a safe space for being able to allow their being, like the energy that we are, to catch up to the body. Um, we make a big mistake sometimes by looking at a child who is physically developing toward an adult body and making assumptions that that they must be thinking about a certain thing, or they must be feeling a certain way, or they must be doing a certain thing based on the way we think they look because we see their developing body. You see what I'm saying? That's the key though. That all comes down to what we think about when we see that and what it means to us. Remember the quote from a couple streams ago: a man sees what he believes, not what he sees. Okay? I think it's by Alan Watts. So if you were conditioned to believe that all girls and all women who have a certain look or a certain body type must be a certain way, instead of seeing a child going through puberty early on, that's because of what you believe, not because that child is fast or must be getting into something like that because you see that they're developing physically. Does that make sense? So they're going to need us to become aware of that and not say things to sexualize the body. You know what I'm saying? Like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like, don't do that because they are still children. And the childlike being, energetically, mentally, cognitively, emotionally, is still in the childhood frequency. So we need to be mindful of that. They need space to allow their energetic being to catch up to what their body might be doing if it starts early. Y'all feel me? Um, if you're looking for things to do, um, to support, going back to like summer programs and stuff. Um, some of those things that they were even doing before, like dance, they can keep doing. But if they're looking for something new, you can find some free things in the neighborhood. Like the city that I live in, there's a big city park, and there's different rec centers all over the city, and the rec center is free, and they all have camps, and you can just go, and you can swim, and you can do arts and crafts. Like, so, sometimes cities or towns have things you can do, or they might be low cost options, or you can even get a scholarship to certain programs if that's what it is. um, but if that's not available, see what the people in your family are doing, or what other parents in your neighborhood might want to organize, or school friends who may not live in the neighborhood, but what y'all can organize together, because the social experiences are important. Um, and a lot of socialization right now is happening online, like how we're doing, and that's fine. But keep in mind that we're talking about this through the lens of energetic development. So children are not approaching online engagement the same way as we do as adults. Boundaries, limitations, and clear expectations have to be in place to support safe engagement online. And so online engagement doesn't become their primary form of socialization during the developmental period. Why? You ever see the video we talked about those tantrums, right? And emotional dysregulation? It doesn't start at age 25 because someone's upset because their team lost a chip. It started decades ago when they were not supported with their emotional regulation. So it started with that child that we see on the social media videos having a severe tantrum because their device got taken away. That's because they have formed an emotional attachment with it. It's not just because we took away their entertainment and now they're going to be bored, or because you're being mean to them. And some of those things might be expressed on the surface, but underneath the surface where the energy resides, they are suffering from a separation of the thing that they're attached to. And they are attached to it because they do it all the time. Children are sponges. So what we allow them to repeat, that's what they're going to soak in the most and want to express the most. So if they're spending all their time socializing online, yeah, don't be surprised when you go into their room and it's stinking dirty in there. It's flies flying all over their snacks because you don't ever make them come out the room and wash and put their stuff in the kitchen. You say, oh, they up in there quiet. They ain't bothering me, so I ain't gonna bother them. Well, that's why, because they haven't been socialized in a healthy way, and so now this communication device is how they feel the best attachment to others, right? It's a machine. See what I'm saying? It's not a person, right? So we want to help our children learn how to form genuine connections. We can do that even in these early beginning stages. The things that we do during the early stages, especially in the from the subconscious mind perspective, they stay stuck there, and they inform how we think and behave. Um, so if you do have concerns, I know I kind of was like making light of it a little bit, but it's serious. So if you do have concerns about your child always being on a device, or just always being in their room, or being a loner who just like is always with the screen, just consider that there might be a deeper attachment to it that we can work through from a different way. All right. Any questions? Y'all know what to do. Drop them in the chizzy. So let's move on to